You guys are going to jump right into this with no introduction. There's a lot that I would like to speak with you guys about. Can't wait to hear your feedback. A lot of lies that are being put out there, narratives that I would say are half-truths or just misrepresentations entirely. And I don't really see the reason for that. First and foremost, I'll let you know last week was not a dream. Charlie Kirk, my friend, is dead. And he was publicly executed. I want to make that clear. Charlie Kirk was publicly executed before the world.
The story took an unexpected and unsettling turn when Candace Owens revealed that she had seen Charlie Kirk's personal journals. What she claimed to have found inside those pages stunned everyone who heard it. According to her, the words were not simply emotional confessions but something much darker, as if they were a desperate cry for help. Her tone was calm and deliberate, not dramatic or exaggerated, yet there was a weight in her voice that made the atmosphere feel heavy, as though she was finally speaking about something she had tried to suppress for a long time. Candace did not appear to be seeking attention or clicks. Instead, it sounded as if she was burdened by the responsibility of what she knew. She claimed that the writings came directly from Charlie's hand, describing how he no longer felt safe within his own home. That single revelation hit people like a punch to the gut. The image of a confident and composed man, one who had always seemed unshakable in public, suddenly collided with the private reality of fear and doubt that he had expressed behind closed doors. Candace described how Charlie allegedly wrote that he felt constantly watched, as if someone close to him was hiding a terrible secret. And according to her, the person he referred to was none other than his wife. The way Candace shared this was not theatrical. Her voice stayed steady but tense, filled with discomfort, as though she knew she was crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. This was not another rumor recycled from social media or whispered through gossip chains. She insisted it was first-hand evidence, his real handwriting, his authentic words written only days before the tragedy that took his life. The revelation shattered the perfect image people had built of him. The strong, certain public figure now appeared as a man quietly battling fear, loneliness, and betrayal inside the very life that once looked picture-perfect. For years, Charlie and his wife had been seen as an ideal couple, their marriage representing devotion and unity. But the thought that he might have felt isolated and suspicious inside that same relationship destroyed that illusion entirely. Candace ended her live stream with a haunting statement that left chills everywhere. She said, "If people knew what he really wrote, they would never look at things the same way again." Her tone was not loud or dramatic, but the quietness of that line carried a force like thunder. It felt less like gossip and more like a warning, suggesting that the truth people thought they knew was only the surface of something much darker. Then, as if that revelation was not already shocking enough, Candace went a step further. She read a part of the diary aloud. She said Charlie had written that he felt the people closest to him were changing, that secret conversations were happening around him, and he was being deliberately left out. She did not have to mention Erica's name. Everyone listening instantly knew who she meant. And then came the line that froze the entire live chat. "I still love her, but I do not know if she will be there for me." Those words, raw and filled with heartbreak, echoed across the broadcast, leaving thousands in silence. It was the kind of confession that made people question what was really happening behind closed doors. Candace explained that what Charlie felt was not anger but something colder, a deep unease, as if he sensed something precious in his life was slipping away. Some believed those notes were written only days before his death, while others thought they were the beginning of a letter he never had the chance to finish, a desperate attempt to say something he could no longer explain. Regardless of which version was true, the result was the same. Charlie was gone, and now the very people who had once criticized and threatened him were the ones trying to memorialize him. The timing of it all made everything more suspicious. What had once seemed like a simple tragedy now felt like the beginning of a much larger mystery. Around that time, Joe Rogan had already sparked a wave of questions on his podcast. He did not throw accusations. He simply asked questions, but the calm, measured way he raised them made listeners stop and think. Rogan said that the official story of Charlie's death did not make sense. He carefully dissected the timeline, pointing out inconsistencies, such as the sudden appearance of a stranger, missing footage, and the technical details that did not align with the reports. He also questioned how the case had been closed so quickly, saying flatly, "Something is not right." That single line hit harder than a long rant. Then he admitted something even more unsettling. On the day of the incident, he had an uneasy feeling that he could not shake. He told his audience that he almost texted a friend about it but changed his mind, trusting only his gut, which told him something was off. Rogan said that when he saw the suspect's photo, the 22-year-old identified as the shooter, it did not feel real. The image looked strange, as if it had been arranged. He noticed that the object in the suspect's hand did not match what was described in the official report. He did not dive deep into technical analysis, but he said the inconsistency alone made him pause and ask, "Why has no one explained this?" He even joked darkly, saying the story felt like a movie script rewritten halfway through. The studio laughed briefly, but the laughter quickly faded because deep down, everyone knew he was not entirely joking. Rogan said that the more he reviewed the limited information available, the more it seemed as though someone had been rearranging the scene. Not to fix it, but to control it. His words were chilling. "I watched my friend get shot in the neck. That's what happened. He was publicly executed before the entire world. The question is, why?" Though Rogan never said who or why, his implication hung heavy in the air. Everything about the official report seemed too neat, too convenient, as if someone wanted to tie it up quickly before people started asking the wrong questions. So when Candace came forward with Charlie's diary, it felt like the missing puzzle piece finally clicked. Rogan's quiet doubts suddenly had substance. He did not refute what she said. If anything, he confirmed it, saying her revelations filled in the blanks that had been troubling him for months. Rogan speculated that maybe Charlie had discovered something massive, something the world was not meant to know. And then came the detail that froze the studio in silence. The mention of a decoy. He spoke of an older man allegedly present that day, someone who, unbelievably, had been seen at several major incidents over the years, from the tragedy in 2001 all the way to the Boston bombings. Rogan hesitated, almost laughing at the absurdity, but no one else was laughing. The idea that this could be true was terrifying. If that man had truly been seen at multiple historical events, then it was not coincidence. It was a pattern, an invisible hand showing up at the right place at the wrong time. Suddenly, the tone shifted from curiosity to fear. What if this was not random at all? What if it was part of something much bigger? As followers began researching the man Rogan described, people online claimed they had seen him before. Always in the background, always near chaos. Witnesses from Charlie's event said he caused a commotion right after the shooting, yelling and waving his arms just long enough to throw everyone into confusion. Police confirmed he was detained days later, though not for that incident, which only deepened suspicions. Witnesses said he shouted strange, incoherent things during the chaos, as if he was trying to distract people from what had just occurred. Even more disturbingly, this was not his first appearance. Reports claimed that the same man, this so-called decoy, had been present during other high-profile events, including the 2001 disaster and the Boston bombing. Rogan added that he had even staged fake emergencies before, following the same pattern every time. And when his name started resurfacing online, things took a darker turn. New information surfaced suggesting he had been arrested in connection with a serious crime involving illegal acts. That revelation made people's skin crawl, because suddenly, this was not just about who hurt Charlie Kirk. It became about how many times the same shadowy figure had shown up before tragedy struck. From that point onward, the mysterious man Joe Rogan mentioned seemed to vanish from existence. No one interviewed him, no one quoted him, and there were no follow-up reports or official statements. He disappeared completely, leaving behind only questions and a trail of eerie coincidences. That sudden silence made everything feel even more unsettling, as though someone had deliberately erased him. Candace Owens later revealed that in Charlie Kirk's own diary, he had written about a man who was meant to mislead others, almost as if he already sensed that someone was pulling strings behind the scenes, manipulating events like a director shaping a movie. That single note changed everything. It was not just a passing comment. It felt like a warning. Could the man Charlie wrote about be the same mysterious figure Rogan described? If so, how did Charlie know about him? Did he discover something important? Or was it the instinct of a man who felt eyes watching him even when no one else noticed? According to those close to Charlie, he had begun noticing strange patterns before his death. He mentioned seeing repeated faces at different events, odd timing, and familiar people appearing in various cities. It was as though he recognized a loop he could not explain. Candace described him as sharp and observant but increasingly paranoid in his final weeks. He had started taking notes on things others dismissed as coincidences. In hindsight, those journals no longer seemed like private reflections. They appeared more like evidence, the final words of a man piecing together a mystery that someone did not want solved. Looking back, that unknown man was not a random extra in the story. He was the link, the connection that tied chaos and confusion together. His sudden appearance, the disturbance he caused, and his disappearance afterward turned what seemed like a personal tragedy into a chilling mystery about control, power, and invisible forces operating in the shadows. As people began connecting the dots, the decoy's involvement, Rogan's questions, and Candace's diary revelations, one question echoed across every platform. What did Charlie Kirk see before he died, and why has no one dared to answer it? Stranger still, after his short detention, that same man seemed to be erased from all official records. There were no interrogation transcripts, no follow-up reports, not even a release date. He simply evaporated. Some people claimed he was mentally unstable, but others believed he knew exactly what he was doing, that the chaos he created was intentional. From that moment, the story stopped feeling like coincidence and began sounding like a calculated setup. Just before everything unfolded, Charlie had reportedly signed an internal memo ordering a massive audit inside Turning Point USA, the very organization he had built from the ground up. Candace Owens later confirmed that the memo was not routine paperwork. It was something explosive. According to her, Charlie wanted complete financial transparency, a deep review of where every single dollar was going. What unsettled many was the list of names tied to the audit. These were not interns or middle managers. They were high-ranking executives who were not used to having their decisions questioned. Candace said that insiders told her the memo made several people very uncomfortable, and the timing was alarming. She revealed that Charlie had signed that document only days before his death. Almost immediately after that, people noticed a shift in his behavior. He became restless and private, checking his emails obsessively, questioning who had access to his files, and disappearing for hours without explanation. He seemed like a man carrying the weight of a dangerous secret. Candace claimed that in his personal journal, he had written one haunting line: "Some people are not going to like what I am about to find." That sentence, short yet heavy, changed the tone of the entire story. It implied that he knew he was close to uncovering something major, something capable of shaking his organization to its core. If that was true, then what happened next may not have been random at all. It could have been the result of a chain reaction he unknowingly triggered. Soon, the internet exploded with theories connecting each piece of the puzzle. The unidentified man causing chaos, the halted audit, the chilling diary notes, and the leader who suddenly realized he was surrounded by danger. Individually, each detail seemed small, but together, they painted a disturbing picture. A world of manipulation and fear hidden beneath the polished surface of success. During one of her live streams, Candace summed it up in a single statement: "I cannot say exactly what happened, but I know Charlie was on to something big. He believed truth mattered more than profit, and that made him dangerous to certain people." That sentence silenced her entire audience because if Charlie, a man known for preaching integrity, began to doubt those closest to him, it meant he had discovered something seriously wrong. After his death, the narrative surrounding him changed completely. What had once been seen as a tragic personal loss evolved into an intricate web of suspicion and unanswered questions. The conversation then took another unexpected turn when public attention shifted toward his wife, Erica Kirk. For years, she had been seen as the steady presence beside him, the supportive partner, the grieving widow. But after Candace revealed the diary excerpts and the audit memo, public perception of Erica began to change drastically. People began to wonder whether she was merely continuing her husband's legacy or standing in the middle of something far more complicated than anyone had dared to imagine. What shocked everyone first was how quickly Erica stepped into Charlie's position at Turning Point USA. The organization he had dedicated his life to was now in her hands within days. She began giving speeches, sitting for interviews, and was presented as his successor almost immediately. To some, this was a touching act of loyalty, a wife keeping her husband's mission alive. To others, the timing was suspicious. Everything happened so fast, with such precision, that people began asking whether this transition had been planned before his death. That single question sent shockwaves through social media. Candace Owens, who had already revealed so many disturbing details, pointed to another clue. According to her, Charlie had written that he was worried important decisions were being made without me. He did not name anyone, but the timing aligned almost perfectly with meetings that insiders later claimed Erica had attended on her own. Initially, nobody thought much of it. Co-workers assumed the couple was simply dividing responsibilities. But in retrospect, it started to look different. People realized that weeks had passed without anyone seeing them together. The once inseparable power couple now seemed like two people moving in opposite directions. Candace did not directly accuse anyone, but her words carried heavy meaning. In one of her live broadcasts, she delivered a single line that stopped everyone in their tracks. "Sometimes the people closest to you are not standing by your side, they are standing behind you." That sentence hit like a knife. It was calm, deliberate, and filled with unspoken implication. Listeners flooded the internet with theories, dissecting every word, every pause, trying to understand what she truly meant. Some believed she was directly referring to Erica, while others thought it was a broader statement about betrayal in positions of power. Regardless, it ignited an online storm. Every public appearance by Erica began to be rewatched in slow motion. Every gesture, every word, every moment was analyzed like evidence. People pointed out how composed she appeared at memorial events. Some called it strength. Others called it detachment. One viral post summed up the debate perfectly. "Grief looks different on everyone, but something about her speeches feels rehearsed." That single comment drew thousands of reactions within hours. Whether it was overanalysis or intuition, the public could not stop questioning the timing and manner of her rise. Candace continued to fuel speculation by revealing another entry from Charlie's journal, allegedly written just days before everything happened. The sentence was chilling in its simplicity. "I am not sure who is really there for me anymore." When she read those words aloud, the live chat went completely silent. It was not just sadness, it was realization. If the entry was genuine, it revealed that Charlie was not just exhausted or overwhelmed. He was lonely and surrounded by doubt. It painted a picture of a man who felt a shift around him. Maybe in his marriage, maybe within his organization, or possibly both. After that final diary entry came to light, everything surrounding Charlie Kirk's death began to feel less like tragedy and more like a calculated silence. The people who had once spoken endlessly about him now avoided the topic altogether. News outlets that had previously covered every small update suddenly stopped mentioning his name. The official reports that were supposed to clarify what happened were delayed, revised, or redacted. And through it all, Erica Kirk remained calm, giving brief, carefully measured statements that revealed nothing. That calmness divided the public even further. Some admired her composure. Others said it looked like control, as if she was managing a narrative rather than living through grief. In one particularly haunting broadcast, Candace Owens shared that she had tried reaching out to Erica directly. She wanted to talk privately, woman to woman, to understand what really happened. But according to Candace, every attempt was ignored. The silence only deepened her suspicion that something was being hidden. During that same stream, she revealed a note she had received from an anonymous source who claimed to have worked closely with Charlie at Turning Point USA. The message, though unsigned, was direct and chilling. It said, he was starting to ask questions he was not supposed to ask. Candace read it out loud, her voice barely above a whisper before adding, "If that is true, then his death was not an accident." The internet erupted. People began searching for connections between Charlie's final weeks and the internal audit he had ordered. Screenshots of deleted emails, fragments of financial documents, and old video clips began circulating online. Whether real or fabricated, they painted a picture of internal conflict, of a man trying to expose something massive and being silenced before he could. Candace admitted she could not verify everything, but the patterns were impossible to ignore. She said it seemed as though someone had gone to great lengths to erase any trace of Charlie's final investigation. What unsettled her the most was how many people who once called him a friend suddenly distanced themselves, deleting photos, posts, and statements overnight. Joe Rogan returned to the subject briefly on his podcast, saying that he had rewatched footage from the event several times and that something about the sequence still did not add up. He mentioned that there was a 7-second gap between the moment of the attack and the crowd's first reaction. A pause that made no sense in a live environment. "It's like people didn't react because they didn't expect to," he said. That one comment reignited speculation that the chaos had been staged, or at least manipulated. Rogan clarified he was not accusing anyone directly, but he insisted the case deserved further investigation. The podcast episode was later quietly removed from several platforms without explanation. Candace Owens, however, refused to back down. She said that even if she lost everything, she would continue speaking because silence would mean complicity. She then dropped another revelation. According to her, a private investigator had approached her with information suggesting that the same unidentified man, the decoy seen at multiple tragic events, had been spotted near Turning Point headquarters days before Charlie's death. Surveillance footage, she said, was mysteriously missing for those specific hours. Whether this was a coincidence or deliberate manipulation remained unclear, but the pattern was undeniable. Every time tragedy struck, this figure appeared in the background, only to vanish afterward. As these stories spread, the internet turned into a battlefield. On one side were those demanding answers, convinced Charlie's death was not what it appeared to be. On the other side were skeptics accusing Candace of exploiting grief for attention. Yet through all the noise, one undeniable truth persisted. The inconsistencies remained unresolved. Why was the official report rushed? Why were eyewitness statements inconsistent? Why did so many files and recordings disappear? Those questions were never answered. In one particularly emotional moment, Candace read what she said were Charlie's last written words. They were short, almost like a prayer. "Truth will outlive me." When she read that line, she broke down in tears on camera for the first time. The strength she had shown throughout her investigation cracked, revealing genuine heartbreak. It was no longer about politics, fame, or reputation. It was about a friend who had died under circumstances that made no sense. Thousands of viewers flooded her stream with messages of support, while others demanded that law enforcement reopen the case. Yet no new inquiry ever began. As time passed, the silence surrounding the tragedy became louder than any words. People stopped talking publicly, but whispers continued in private spaces. Some said that key witnesses had left the country. Others claimed that security footage had been sold or hidden. Nothing was ever confirmed, but the atmosphere was thick with fear. Even Joe Rogan later admitted that people close to him had advised him to stop discussing the case altogether. "When too many people tell you to stay quiet, that's when you know you hit a nerve," he said during one of his later episodes. That statement alone spoke volumes. Candace began distancing herself from certain circles afterward, claiming she no longer felt safe. In one of her final public statements about the case, she said she believed the story of Charlie Kirk was not over, that history would eventually expose the truth. She compared his final months to a man standing on the edge of a massive discovery, saying, "He was not paranoid. He was aware." Those words stayed with people long after her broadcast ended. In the months that followed, Erica Kirk continued her public appearances, running the organization and presenting herself as the guardian of her husband's vision. But something about her speeches began to feel different. The warmth and conviction Charlie had once carried seemed replaced by something colder, more rehearsed. Observers noticed how often she avoided discussing his final days, steering every conversation toward future projects and charity work instead. When asked directly about the diary, she said it was a misunderstanding and refused to discuss it further. That evasiveness only fueled more suspicion. Eventually, the internet's attention shifted to other stories, but the lingering unease never disappeared. Every few months, a new clip or screenshot would resurface, pulling people back into the same questions that were never answered. Even years later, those who had followed the case closely could not shake the feeling that something was missing. The diary, the audit, the mysterious man, the silence, it all formed a puzzle whose final piece was never found. Candace, in one of her later podcasts, summarized everything in a single haunting line. "They tried to bury him, but they forgot he planted seeds." She said that Charlie's work had inspired people to start asking hard questions, not just about his death but about the structures of control surrounding every major event that shapes public opinion. Whether one believed her or not, the impact was undeniable. The story of Charlie Kirk had grown beyond one man. It had become a symbol of fear, truth, and the high cost of speaking it. In the end, the tragedy left behind more shadows than clarity. The man once celebrated for his boldness and conviction became the center of a mystery that no one dared to solve. His final written words, "Truth will outlive me," echoed like prophecy. And maybe that is what terrified those who tried to silence him most. The idea that even in death, truth has a way of returning, refusing to stay buried, whispering through every unanswered question that still lingers in the dark.